Hello, ma'am.
I think ma'am's having a little bit of
Yeah, yes.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, I think you're back.
I haven't unmuted. That is the problem.
Yes.
Good evening, one and all. It's indeed our pleasure to have such a person, such a lot of experience in information technology. He has more than 25 years of experience in information technology, and he has joined us here to give us what is happening in the information technology area. The recent trend, that is the blockchain technology, which is taking over all other technologies. So that sir will be giving a very in-depth knowledge of blockchain technology. That is what we hope to hear from him. Thank you for coming, sir. In spite of your busy schedule, you have come and joined us, and you have made all these things, PPTs and other things for our sake. So it is indeed a great pleasure to have you among us. And I welcome all the participants as well. Before we get into the session, though you are waiting to hear the webinar, before taking you to the session, we would like to give you a brief intro about our college, that is Alpha College of Engineering. So Alpha College of Engineering this is about myself. I am Dr. B. Somya, Principal, Alpha College of Engineering. Our college has been started in the year 2006 in an area of 65 acres, and the built-up area itself is 12 acres. And we have got approval from the AICT for running this engineering college, and this is affiliated to Anna University, and this is an ISO 9001 certified institution. We offer 5 UG programs, 4 under the Bachelor of Engineering stream and 1 in the Bachelor of Technology stream. Bachelor of Engineering, under that we offer Biomedical Engineering, Computer Science and Engineering, Electronics and Communication Engineering, and Mechanical Engineering. Under BTech stream, we offer Information Technology. We have got Master of Business Administration, that is a PG program. So what our main aim, that is what this college strives to do is, we want the student to be the best in the chosen field. So whatever be the level of the student while they enter the college, when they move out of the college, they have to be best in their field. So that is what we hope to achieve. For that, we have got student assisting units, that is Career Development Cell, Entrepreneurship Development Cell, Big Training Cell, SysMem Training, Pan IT Leadership Series we have been collaborating with them. So all these, with all these assisting units, we make our students best in their field. So Career Development Cell, what the Career Development Cell offers is, we offer aptitude training. That is, we train them on quantitative aptitude, logical reasoning, analytical reasoning, everything. We train through aptitude training. Then their interpersonal skills, so that they can work in a team as a group. If they can work, we develop their interpersonal skills. That is what this interpersonal skills training is doing. Cell is doing. Then we have got soft skills training. Whatever be the way they express themselves, that has to be done politely and other things. All these things are being taught in soft skills training. So all these training together will build the overall personality of the student. So overall personality development is being taken care of by our Career Development Cell. We have got Entrepreneurship Development Cell. Actually, we don't want just our students to be a job seeker. We want them to be job providers as well. For that, we have tied up with prestigious institutions like NEN, Enactus, MSc, MSME, etc. So all these institutions, they do offer us seminars and workshops. So what they ultimately aim to do is, a student's project, whether it could be taken as a product and which could be marketed, and a student could become an entrepreneur. That they do give them the training. They evaluate their projects, and they say in what way it could be made into a product. And their new ventures, if they do need financial help, that also being arranged by this Entrepreneurship Development Cell. Then we have tied up with Cambridge University for Business English Certificate. So this is actually, you know that though you possess the knowledge, unless you speak out, unless you communicate, you cannot make yourself understood. People will not know what is your level of understanding and other things unless you do project yourself properly. So for that, communication is important. So all 4 language skills like listening, speaking, and reading and writing, we do emphasize on. So this business English certification through the Cambridge English training, we do give our students the communication skills, which ultimately lands them in good jobs. And apart from these communication skills, that is BEXCEL and CDC and EDC, what we have is Center of Excellences for each department. So if you are a computer science engineer or an electronics engineer, if you want to do a networking certification, then we have got the Cisco Laboratory. So Cisco Laboratory, we do offer CCNA certification. So this CCNA certification has got 4 levels. All 4 levels, we are offering them. And we have tied up with Autodesk for Autodesk Inventor certification. And we have tied up with Oracle Academy for Oracle Java programming and OR programming. And Dell EMC we have tied up with for giving big data analytic design. So all these certification course, we do give the students training and they do take the certificates from the respective agencies. And every student who wants to become an engineer, they want to do it in IIT, but that may not be possible. So for our students, we want to give them the glimpse of what is happening at IIT. So for that, we have tied up with Pan IIT Leadership Series. So they offer seminars. So IIT professors come and take seminars and they give competitions. That is a project competition. Mostly our students participate in those project competitions and they project their projects and they got very good feedback for their projects. Then we have residential workshops at IIT itself for our students. Our students go and stay at IIT for a period of 1 week and they learn from them. So there also they do the project which is given on spot. So those projects they finish and they come back. So the knowledge gets enhanced by these things. Then IIT, Pan IIT Leadership Series, they also arrange industrial visits. And we have got SWISMEM certification. SWISMEM certification we offer in machine learning and mechatronics. So you know that the precision engineering industries or countries are Switzerland and Germany. So we have tied up with Switzerland, that is SWISMEM, which is the leading technical association for engineering industries in Switzerland. So they offer these machine learning and mechatronics course. So this machine learning, you know, that is part of artificial intelligence. So you have a machine that is for whenever you create a machine, that is actually a mechanical engineering coming into play. And when you have electronics and if you do make the machine move through electronics, then it becomes a mechatronics. So ultimately, a machine starts moving with an embedded system inside it and start doing things. If you program it in such a way that it learns on its own, like a human being learning on his own, a machine starts learning on its own. Then that becomes machine learning. You are giving a machine an intelligence which it does not have. For example, if you are giving a color red and a machine being trained to identify red balls and separate it, then what you do ultimately, if you do provide it with a red color, then automatically it separates that. So whatever be the size, whatever be the shape. So that kind of this thing is being offered by this machine learning and mechatronics. And this machine learning and mechatronics is very important during this pandemic period because we are using humanoids. We have seen China using humanoids for treating their patients. So what they are doing is they are using feeding the patients with the medicines through the humanoids. So it has to go towards the patient and offer them whatever pills they are prescribed for. So that intelligence those humanoids do have. So that has been actually programmed by the human being so that it can have the intelligence of its own and can serve the purpose. So that is what this machine learning and mechatronics is all about. So this SWISMEM certification we are offering as part of our college Center of Excellence. Then we have got SkillRack online courses. These SkillRack online courses, they usually is meant for improving the students' problem-solving skills as well as programming skills. So they can get themselves in touch with all the latest programming, that is Python, C, C++, whatever it is, Java, everything are offered. So they can keep on doing their practice in SkillRack online courses. And this is about our college achievements. We have been ranked 40 in the top 100 engineering college of India by the Silicon India. And this is our student Malavika Nair of 2018 batch. receiving her gold medal from our Honorable Governor Banwari Lal Purohit. She was the university first rank. She bagged the university first rank in Anna University in semester exam. So this is a college receiving the Teaching Excellence Award from Education Matters. So our college, our students been continuously producing university ranks and they have been bagging gold medals. And our students and staff, they have received funding from many government agencies like Tamil Nadu State Council of Science and Technology, AICTE, ISRO for the projects. And we have got, we do send our students for industrial training and internships in leading industries, not only in India and abroad. Consistently, our students been achieving 100% placement. We are giving them 100% placement. And our students' projects are winning prizes as well. So our students, they mostly do their higher studies not only in India, they do abroad or as well, that is in European countries as well as American countries. So this is our college sports facilities which you are looking at. So our college has got excellent sports facilities. We have got football ground, we have got cricket ground, and our college students have won gold medals in zonal and state levels. And one of our students is representing Anna University in national level as well. We offer the students who will join a college a scholarship. For SCSC students, we offer 100% tuition fee waiver. For first graduates, we offer 25,000 fee concession. And for merit scholarship, if somebody is scoring above 90, there is a slab of scholarship awarded to them. And if they are scoring above 75, there is another slab for them. So if you see a college environment, it is very amicable environment. So the student and can feel at home at a college. Our faculty members are well trained and they do possess the knowledge which they can share with these students. They are well trained as well as dedication is more important and they do treat students friendly. And we have got polite non-teaching staff as well. So overall environment of the college, the learning environment, what we feel at Alpha is very amicable and it is actually a home away from home. So this is about our college. Stay home, stay informed, stay safe. Thank you. Over to you, Sujat.
Thank you, ma'am, for your presentation. Good evening once again, participants. I take immense pleasure in introducing our speaker, Mr.Souri Rajan, sir, who is a COO of BONBLOC, USA. He has completed his master's in computer applications from St. Joseph's College. He also holds an MBA in international business from Webster University. He has an overall industrial experience of around 27 plus years. He was also the former executive director of Panasonic USA and has held various prestigious positions in Fortune 500 companies. He holds a lot of certifications and he has also been the advisory board member for various organizations. On behalf of Alpha College of Engineering, I once again welcome you, sir. We are eagerly waiting for the session. Over to you, sir.
Well, thank you. Thanks for the introduction. I'm trying to share my screen here. If you could excuse me for 1 second.
Yes.
Okay, I hope you all can see this, Blade, right?
Yes, sir. We are able to see.
Okay, good. Thank you. I just want to make sure that, 1 second, please. Okay. I hope everyone can see my screen here, right? The first screen.
Yes, sir.
Okay, thanks, George. From wherever you are joining this webinar, sincerely thank you very much for joining this. From wherever you are, it's good morning or good evening or good afternoon. For me, like it's morning time here. I'm joining from US. Like, it's good morning, everyone, and good evening for a lot of people in India. My name is Souri. I'm the co-founder and chief operating officer, as well as a CTO of BONBLOC USA. BONBLOC is entering into the third year of the business, and we are expanding our operations in India as well. And I'm the board member of a few healthcare startups in New Jersey. Primarily, our company products are focused on three areas: blockchain, IoT, and data science. Probably if you have any questions, I'll address that in the later part of the presentation. What's the objective of this webinar? By end of this webinar, you should be able to understand and articulate, at least understand what is blockchain, why blockchain, what are the major blockchain technologies that are out there in the software industry, and where all the blockchain applications used, or even blockchain technology specific used in the industry. That's more importantly you need to know. I hope like you would be able to understand at the end of the webinar. What is blockchain? Most of the people think about blockchain is blockchain as a Bitcoin. I want to correct folks who think about blockchain as a Bitcoin, because Bitcoin is not just blockchain. It is, it is not a cryptocurrency either. Okay, blockchain is a technology. Bitcoin is, I would say from my end, it's a cryptocurrency based application, uses blockchain technology. That's what it's all about. Blockchain is cryptographically secure, and it's a shared distributed ledger. People often use a terminology called DLT, which is basically a distributed ledger technology. Blockchain is originally, people call it a blockchain, people call it blockchain. It is a blockchain, which is nothing but a growing list of records. For a lot of computer students, you would come across a concept called a linked list or double linked list, right? It is nothing but a kind of a linked list where the reference of the current record, being referenced by the previous one. Okay, in the double links, it is more forward and backward. Okay, but in this case, it is just a single list basically altogether. It's formed in terms of blocks that are linked using cryptography. Each block contains a cryptographic hash of the previous block with a timestamp, a transaction data, generally represented as a Merkle tree, if you would assume, or if you can think of that. Okay. Another important point that to be noted is that, transactions in blockchain are immutable. What does immutable means? Immutable means you can't change any record that are written in the ledger. Somebody might ask what does ledger means. Okay, ledger, you can think of accounting ledger, right? For example, when you take your passbook in those days, we used to take passbook in India, to the banks and get all the transactions recorded in our books, as well as the books of the banks and books of the third party as well too. There are multiple ledgers being maintained, but here it is one single ledger maintained across the network. And also it is decentralized database, which means that, it is not centralized database, obviously, right? So which stores the information in the form of transactions, and where all the nodes in the network process each and every transaction that as and when it occurs. I will show an example of how the transaction occurs in a blockchain network in the later part of the presentation. People would quite often ask, why blockchain? Okay, there are many reasons blockchains are being used versus the traditional programming technologies, right? The important features of blockchains are as listed here: immutability, transparency, efficiency, traceability, and security. What is immutability? I think I briefly touched in the previous slide. Transaction happens every second in network, right? Be it a sales order or purchase order or any payments made, or in the network, on any tracking, trace and track of any accounting transactions also, right? These transactions happen every minute, every second in a network. In a big network I'm talking about. In some network, like, it happens every hour or so. But in a high volume transactions, it happens every minute, every second. What people do is, like, every participant in this in the network will have his or her own ledger, which they maintain by themselves. This allows them to have that version of truth. In other words, they have the ledger, which is same as the person who is in the other, other participant of the network also. So there is no two different versions of the ledgers being maintained, and nobody can change any transactions without a consensus of the other participant. That's why immutability comes so strong in blockchain. So data that is once stored cannot be modified, and it is transparent across the board because of the immutability, because of the consensus across the participants in the network. Everything is transparent. Whatever you see is I see. Whatever I see is you see, and she sees or he sees, basically. So having multiple ledger in a traditional world is a great recipe of error, right? Which means that, all the fraudulent activities could happen, a lot more inefficiencies of information being exchanged, maintained. So this completely eliminates when you have a transparency of what you maintain in your ledger versus what other person maintains. The goal of having a blockchain is to increase the transparency end-to-end by, in an end-to-end transaction network. It creates a greater efficiency, which is basically an outcome of the transparency also, because you enable all the businesses to carry their operations in a more efficient manner and in a more transparent manner. When there is a transparency, efficiency automatically kicks in. And because of the transparency, efficiency, and also you keep a log of all the activities, there is a traceability is there, which means that, all the transactions happen in the network, you have a log associated with that. So you can trace back from where you are to where it came from. So there is no meddling of any fraudulent activities in the network at all. Okay, so nobody can sneak in and then modify the records, change the record, delete the record, or any of that stuff. Okay, so everything is recorded and traceable. Because of this, like, you need a highly secured environment, right? Like, this offers high security because of cryptography algorithm being maintained or created on each and every block that's being created. So what type of blockchain networks that you can think of? There are 4 different variety of blockchain network maintained in any application per se. One second, I think they have some problem here. Okay, I hope everyone can see it. There are several ways you can build a blockchain network. They can be public, they can be private, they can be permissioned, or even built by the consortium. I'll quickly go over, what these means basically. The public blockchain networks come under umbrella of, like, everyone has an access to the blockchain network. It is the one that anyone can join, anyone can participate. Probably you would have heard of a concept or even a cryptocurrency called Bitcoin, right? So anyone can participate in a Bitcoin, buy Bitcoin, and sell Bitcoin, right? So it's public. What's the disadvantage, is that due to substantial computational power required, it's pretty expensive. Okay, and also little or no privacy on the transaction that you do in the network, and also because of the volume of people getting in with no privacy there, there's also a weak security there. Okay, I don't say there's no security, but there is a weak security. So these are the important considerations you need to consider for the enterprise version of the blockchain. What's a private blockchain network? It is similar to public blockchain network. It is decentralized peer-to-peer network, and it's with a significant difference that one organization governs the network. Okay, it also controls who will be allowed to participate in the network and who can do the transaction, who can approve it. All those criteria are being built in as part of the private blockchain network. And more importantly, a consensus protocol is also executed. In other words, like I said, who can control or who can approve the transactions in a network, and it maintains a shared ledger also. Meaning in the ledger, like I said earlier, the ledger that you have is what I have as well too, a same copy. In permission blockchain network, businesses quite often set up private blockchain. When we talk about permission blockchain, it's not about public blockchain network. It is more about private blockchain network, which will be set up by a permission blockchain network. It is important to know that a public blockchain network can also be permission, but a lot of restrictions will not be there. In private permission blockchain, it places a restriction who is allowed to participate and who can do what kind of transactions at what time and so on. Okay, and here the participant need to be invited, and also will be given a permission to join as well by the organization. The consortium blockchain is a little bit different in the sense multiple blockchain organizations can share the responsibility of maintaining blockchain. So in other words, multiple organizations determine who will submit transaction, who is authority in your organization who could submit the transaction to our organization, who will have an authority to endorse and so on. So at a very high level, this is the difference between all these networks, public, private, permission versus the consortium one. Many times people ask, do I need blockchain? People who have joined here working in the industry, might come across also. They have been dealing with a lot more relational database system, silo system. They've been working with all the ERP system and so on. Quite often the business will look into that one, in terms of why do I need to embrace blockchain? Because of its being fancy or it's a new, should I do that? There are many factors need to be considered. Do I need to share data? If the answer is no, we can still use the data, maintain the data in a spreadsheet form or in a simple database form as well too, depending on the need of your current application. If the answer is yes, yes, I need to share the data, then the question could be, does it mean more entity will be needed to contribute the data? If the answer is no, then you can have an external auditor, auditing the information, and also you can consider a small database to maintain that information as well. If the data records are written, you don't want that to be updated or deleted. If you say, no, I want all the data to be updated at some point, then there's no need for blockchain. You can still maintain the same database that you've been maintaining in your organization. in some cases, people might say, you know what, yes, I don't want my records to be deleted or written by anybody else outside my organization. So because it's of sensitive information, do you want a total consensus, then you can go to the next level and then say, you know what, do I need to have an access to have multiple people to have access and then control the data? Then you can go to the next one of like, you know, do I need to have a tamper-proof of log? Meaning like, you know, anyone creates a transaction, I want to have a log of who created the transaction, what time, who approved it, and so on. You don't need to have such logs. Still, you can maintain the same database that you have. Otherwise, you can go with blockchain. Ultimately, the blockchain is like what I mentioned earlier, is you want an immutable one. If you want to have a complete provenance, which means that, you know, end-to-end traceability of where it's sourced, who approved it, who, you know, what's the consensus of the transaction that you're dealing with, and who endorsed it, and what is the current status of a transaction. If you want to have the complete trail of all these information that you are talking about on a transaction, probably you need to go with the blockchain. Otherwise, you know, you should be maintaining information in your existing application without spending money and time in blockchain. We had a lot of times I talk about how the blockchain works and how the transaction in blockchain works. And to give you a glimpse of like how the transaction works in a typical network is like, you know, transaction is always being requested. Okay. When it is requested, the transaction is broadcasted, you know, in the network, and everyone sees the transaction. There are certain people who validates that in the network. Okay, there is an endorser who endorsed that transaction to be valid, you know, and then the network being passed, and everyone sees it, and then upon approval, a transaction as a block is created in the chain. Okay, and once the block is being added in a chain, the transaction by itself is complete in the network. That's how typically the transaction works in the blockchain. And there's another concept called smart contract. Smart contract is nothing but the computer program. For those folks like, you know, who are pretty familiar about background processes or the triggers in the olden technologies, like, you know, the triggers are, it's kind of a triggered program that gets triggered based on certain condition. Okay, so it is capable of facilitating and executing and also enforcing the negotiation and performance of an agreement. In other words, like, you know, when something happens, this wakes up and then say, okay, this happens for a certain condition, so I need to execute this. So all the third party will get the contract agreement, which is like a digital contract. If people talk about smart contract, it's nothing but it is similar to the paper contract, but it is executed on a certain event. Okay, so the entire process is automated in the system. What the purpose of this smart contract is a complement of an existing legal contracts that you have on a paper. So the main advantage to the smart contract is that it is recorded in the computer. So anytime that, you know, you want to, you know, see how what is in the contract, and if you want to change it, then you need to have approval within the participants as well too. Okay, basically the smart contract is a defined rule set, and all the penalties and sometimes not just penalties, also sometimes reward also happens, right? For some instance, if you're working with a contractor and the contractor finishes a job well ahead, there could be some clause which could say they get 10% more in the contract because of early completion of the job, right? So these penalties and rewards and everything are included in the agreement. just like the way in our traditional contract works, right? But this is in the computer form, like it's more on the digital form. And in the, one second. Am I looking at something here? Something is missing here. Sorry. I hope you all can see, right? So
yes, sir.
So
yes, sir.
what you see here is like, the kinds of blockchain technologies used in the enterprises. There are four leading technologies. One is Ethereum. Another one is Hyperledger. In Hyperledger, there are many frameworks there, which we'll talk about as well. I don't want to talk about in detail about this because this is kind of talking about in detail about the Java programming, talking about the Angular, React, and so on. So I'm not going over the details about this, but I will give you a glimpse of what these technologies are and where it is being used. Hyperledger also has many framework underneath that a lot of people, a lot of organizations use. Another leading blockchain technology is called R3 Corda, and then last one is the Quorum. There are multiple, apart from these four, there are many other technologies in the market as well, but these four are the leading blockchain technologies that are prevalent in the market. Ethereum is a global open source platform that's being used for decentralized application. On Ethereum, you can write code that controls the digital value, runs exactly as programmed, and is accessible anywhere in the world. Also, Ethereum is second largest cryptocurrency platform by market capitalization behind Bitcoin. If you look at, just like Bitcoin is just a digital currency, Ethereum also has a digital currency and also has got a blockchain platform. Okay. I think it goes by, I don't know the market thing. It's called ETR as a currency. Probably you can check it out as well. It's one of the leading digital currency in the world as well, next to Bitcoin. Hyperledger is an open source community focused platform on developing a suite of stable frameworks, tools, and libraries for enterprise grade blockchain deployments. It also serves as a neutral home for various distributed ledger frameworks, including Hyperledger Fabric, Sawtooth, Indy, as well as tools like Caliper and libraries like Hyperledger Ursa. A few other libraries and tools have joined in the Hyperledger frameworks, or a Hyperledger Foundation, if you will. So you can take a look at the Hyperledger Foundation, and then you'll see a slew of frameworks included or inducted in Hyperledger, and which are pretty popular in the enterprise world. R3 is an enterprise, R3 Corda to be very specific, is an enterprise blockchain software as well, working with a broad ecosystem of more than 300 participants across multiple industries, from both private and public sectors that develop blockchain application Corda, which is also an open source blockchain platform. And Corda Enterprise to be specific, a commercial version of Corda for enterprise usage. Based on Ethereum, Quorum is an open source blockchain platform, combines the innovation of the public Ethereum community as well as the enhancements to support the enterprise community as well. What you see here is on the right hand side is a comparative analysis of where each and every technology being used and what type of ledger being maintained or is used for, basically. If you look at industry-wise, Ethereum is across all industry except the R3, Corda, and Ripple. Other three are pretty much used in all the industries. In fact, Hyperledger, Fabric, and Ethereum are mainly used in healthcare, used in any supply chain industry, used in government sectors as well. In terms of the ledger being maintained, across these technologies, except the Ethereum, all four of them are permission-based networks. In other words, like we talked about what is permission versus permissionless in our previous slides, right? So in the permission one, you need to have, it's well established and secured, and you need to have we have a total consensus. You have a person who endorse all the transaction. You need to be invited to be part of the network. That's what the permission is all about. In permissionless, anyone can join. You don't have to have an invitation to join the network. In terms of the consensus, everything is like, every technology has got its own consensus mechanism. In other words, like how they approve, who endorse it, what type of certificates being maintained across the network, and so on. Every technology supports smart contract in the form of smart contract or chain code. In some places they call chain code, for instance, like in Hyperledger. And except for Ripple, everyone supports smart contract. Do all technology support cryptocurrency? The answer is no. Most of them don't, except Ethereum. None of the technologies support cryptocurrency. I want to go over the few use cases of where blockchain is being used here. Blockchain in healthcare is being used, and blockchain in supply chain used. Blockchain is used in manufacturing. Blockchain is used in financials. Blockchain is used in government. I'll briefly talk about a few things on that, okay? Let me talk about the healthcare, where it's being used. The main challenge in the healthcare side, if you can think of, like, the whole supply chain management. When you procure some product in healthcare, right, you don't know the source. You don't know which are the areas being touched, like, from the inception all the way to the end of the chain. And also, you don't know the how authentic those products are, okay? How it's being produced, where it's being produced, in what condition it's being produced, or do you have the right accessories in the healthcare product or ingredients in the tablet that you consume or the medicine that you consume, right? And also when you go to the doctor's office, also you don't know, like, what type of claims that you're eligible for, and what kind of fraudulent activities in the claim adjudication process as well. So these are the typical challenges that you see in a blockchain, in a healthcare world, right? Now blockchain can address that in the healthcare, in these type of challenges in the healthcare world. There are a lot of huge opportunities there, right? And blockchain can connect payers, blockchain connect to the providers, it can connect to the distributors, it can connect to the factories which produces the medicines and the medical products, right? So you have an end-to-end, you can connect all the dots here with the blockchain. I'll give you a simple use case of how it's being used in the blockchain claim systems, right? In a typical claim system, when you walk in as a patient to a doctor's office, right? Doctor prescribes, some medication. You take the medication and then go to the pharmacy store. At least like in US and other Western countries, like everything being sent to the pharmacy store directly. by the physician's office or the doctor's office, and the person doesn't either, can take the physical prescription, or sometimes it's being, notified directly to the pharmacy store. And the pharmacy store also calls the payer organization. Payer is nothing but the insurance organization, right? In the European countries or even in US, the insurance companies pay certain portions based on the type of insurance you have taken with them, right? There are certain criteria need to be met, and a lot of phone calls will be made. A lot of cross-checking will be done either through the system or through the phone call or in person. There are a lot more things happen in the background. Everything is time consuming. Time is money, right? Because people are spending more time on that. And also there is a chance that pharmacy could dispense wrong drugs also, depending on the authenticity of the information that is coming in. So there are a lot more things could happen in a bad way, in a typical claim system and also medical system. How do we avoid that? How does the blockchain that can address in this kind of setting? So blockchain as a system, issues ID to all the patients who registered in the network, right, in the system. They have their own private key, which will be recorded or accessible by the insurer, and also accessible by the hospital, which is the provider organization, and also accessible by the pharmacies too. Okay, so everyone is a participant in this network, if you think, right, in the system, and everyone will have access to the patient information. Again, the patient information can be accessed only with the consent of the patient. Nothing can happen without the consent of the patient in a typical healthcare setting. Okay, so once everything is being validated, all the way from prescription validation to the insurance validation, to the clinical validation, to the drug validation, a block will be added, which means that yes, you are through, your prescription is being filled in, and this is what you need to pay, and this is what you agree to pay to your insurer, and this is what the insurer is agreed to pay to you. So everything is totally visible, right from the patient to the insurance. Okay, so a complete set of visibility is in place in this network. There's no chance of fraudulent activities in this process. That's how the patient data is created. Once patient approves that, this I agree, and then everyone agrees to this one, block is being added, patient data as being added in the chain. Nobody can modify the patient data at any point as well too. Okay, and there are other places where blockchain is of great help, and it can also help in the terms of patient consent and health data exchange. The challenge in that health data exchange is that there is a disparate record keeping systems that can result in patient consent forms, other things, and where the histories of the data, patient data, may or may not be complete. There'll be conflicting and ambiguous information about the patient data as well too. This is where the blockchain comes into play in terms of blockchain stored records can be used to provide complete longitudinal, health records of individuals, giving all the patient more control over their own information, because patient at the end of the day, patient has full control of who can access what, right? So with the blockchain, every patient record also reflects in the records, from genomics data to diagnostic medical imaging. All those things can happen with greater visibility and transparency, with no need for a central gatekeeper. Blockchain in supply chain, it is one of my favorite subjects too. I just want to take it because I'm heavily involved in both healthcare, supply chain, and other key areas. That's what our focus is also. The challenge that we have seen here is like, the supply chain data. It is not quite visible for all the parties. It's not available when needed, and most of the time it is not trusted. I'll explain why and how blockchain can come in this picture. Another challenge is the onboarding. If you get in there, like in a lot more suppliers specifically, pretty hesitant about onboarding in terms of convincing them the benefit of the transparent operations. They don't involve pretty easily in these things because they don't trust a lot of things. So they don't. So onboarding of supplier is a major issue as well. So also lack of ERP tools, because everyone maintains their own applications. That it's all silos based, databases they maintain. Some people even don't maintain database. They are all like paper based, right? So how do you get the data of what you need and when you need? It's always a difficult scenario to deal with. And more importantly, the track and trace is another important thing that supply chain is always struggling and always fighting in that area, because they are unable to track and trace the end-to-end chain all the way from the source to the destination. I'll come to a quick use case on where exactly this kind of problem exists and how blockchain can address that. More importantly, the opportunity of blockchain is the supply chain partners always share the trust data through a permission blockchain solution, where they are invited and they also get to participate in the network, and they will have a total consensus of what goes where, when, how, who approves it, who can endorse it, and so on. Also, sometimes they can establish channels also, right? In a permissioned blockchain, there's like a typical business that's been done, right? A business deals with a customer that could be a different contract, right? For a particular customer, that contract should not be revealed or may not be revealed to another customer. So you form a different channel, right? So all the private information pertaining to the dealings of the transaction that you have established with the particular person or particular business or particular customer be maintained in a separate channel. This is not possible in a traditional world. And also, more importantly, you can form a consortium, which we talked about that, or even a private network to track and trace of your product and its condition. In other words, you can form a group of organizations in one blockchain network, and then do a end-to-end transaction traceability of all the products that you deal with between parties. I'll give you a quick example of walk through a quick example of how blockchain is used in a cold chain supply chain industry. If you look at that, on your left-hand side, you have producers. Okay, you have various type of producers. You have producers from the farm. You have producers from the manufacturing unit. What they do is they ship the product. They ship the product from their produced location to another manufacturing location. It could be a raw material, right? That could be sent to another manufacturer who will complete a product that could be shipped to a warehouse, where warehouse keep all the products in the location and then ship to a store. And the store ships and distributes or sells it to the customers. So that's how the cold chain works, right? If there's something is returned back to the store, it goes back in the reverse way. It goes to the wholesaler, to the manufacturer, all the way to the producer, right? That's how the cold chain works. Here, the blockchain provides the end-to-end visibility. How does it provide end-to-end visibility? It's all the participants in this, if you can think of this graph as a network, as a blockchain network, producer can be one participant, manufacturer could be one participant, a person in a warehouse could be a one participant, a store manager could be a participant, right? So anytime that you have a movement of products from a location A to B to C to Z, you have a complete traceability of your product end to end. And anytime that you recall a food, is can also be back producer it all the way to the level where, like, you can say, if, let's say for example, if a batch of a cheesecake is being, or cheese rather, is bad, right? So you can, instead of throwing all the cheese in a store, you can find out where does the cheese originate from, like in which batch, which area in a warehouse, where does it come from, which manufacturing unit, at what date it produces, like, or manufactured. You can trace all the way back there, and then discard that particular batch alone, as opposed to completely throwing the entire product from your shelf to the garbage, right? Because in the industry, like, typically in the food industry, the wastage of the food, because of the safety issue, they lose about close to, like, it depends on the industry, but it depends on the company that you deal with. Typically, the industry loses about around, like, $50 to $100 million. Okay, so on a yearly basis, I'm talking about it, depending on the size. Again, anywhere from, if you're talking about a small scale industries or the businesses, anywhere from $1 million to $50 million, like, they lose on food safety. So when you have the traceability, food recalls, food wastages can be avoided as well too. And also you can create smart contracts, like, between producer and manufacturer and the warehouse, what time it triggers, a shipment to the store. All those details can be executed flawlessly through smart contracts, as opposed to doing it through the paper contracts. Again, more importantly, like, these information can be validated by the food administration authorities, from a remote location, as opposed to coming to there and then validating each and every item, or doing a spot checking of some items on a quarterly basis. They don't have to do all these things. They can do it from a remote location by looking at the data that, that went through from all the way from source to destination. Blockchain in the public sector is another important area that people are so interested in, especially the governments. Based on my observation, at least 50 plus governments across the globe started implementing blockchain in various forms. Either the county, in the city, or the state level, or the federal level. It's been implemented across in various areas in public sector. The challenges that probably you might see, like, it's always a complex transaction that's not transparent. When you go even buy a house, let's say, for example, you don't know where it originated, who is the first owner of the house, what kind of modification that person did it in the house. Was it approved by the local authority? Was it approved by the housing authority? Or was it approved by the federal authority? You don't have any clue about that, right? All we know is, like, the current party. Even now, we don't know the current party. We cannot validate the genuinity of the genuine, whether the person is really genuine or fake person, or does the person come up with a fake document. You don't know the authenticity of those transaction, as well as the certificates that the person is bringing in, or any documents that the person is bringing in. Okay, another person may have the similar documents also. So how do you know who is valid and who is fake? It's pretty hard, right? That's the big challenge at this point in any government operations, right? In anywhere in the world, not only in one part of the globe. The opportunities are endless here, because you are sharing the same data, like I said earlier, with the consensus confidence, and you are eliminating the rework of that. In other words, like, nobody is maintaining multiple systems to maintain the transactions that's happening. At the end of the day, you end up with the greater confidence, right? Because you have complete visibility on the transaction that you're dealing with. Public record, usually it's being maintained in a manual manner, right? Most of the, I've seen, like, in India, it's been digitized. Slowly it is getting digitized. In some part of the world, like, it's still in the paper, right? Everything is in the paper. What if the paper gets lost, right? Or get burned, or the entire building gets burned, or vandalized, or looted, right? So you lose all the records, right? So there is, again, somebody can claim a certain property on their name, which may not be on their name at all. So these blockchain can help that, can address that definitely. And also, government needs costly architecture and databases. More importantly, this is what it happens. Like most of the government offices, like, they maintain silo applications, databases, pretty hard to manage. And then you need a lot of cross-reference need to happen, a lot of paperwork need to happen, a lot of approval, local approval need to happen. So these can be avoided as well too. And at the end, it increases the efficiency, security, as well as the accuracy of the system that you're dealing with, or the transaction that you're dealing with. More importantly, like, all the information are very real time, because you have your ledger, that's being visible across the board. For instance, if you go and buy a house, right, whatever the ledger that you have on your property is being maintained or is visible by the registrar of the office, also by the third party, but meaning like the person who sold it, by the person who is going to buy in the future also will know, how many parties being involved in the property in the past will come to know as well too, because nobody changes the records, nobody deletes it. Because of the immutability of the condition of the blockchain, nobody can change it, nobody can delete the past transactions. So just to recap, blockchain is not for everyone. I think you saw my use case about, like, do you really need blockchain? So in that case, you can assess what problem that you're dealing with in your organization, in your traditional systems, and the business processes that you have that can address by blockchain technology, right? That you need to assess those things. You need to have internal, assessment in place in terms of why should I go for blockchain. Few elements of blockchain, you would, by this time you understand. Sorry, I switched here. Sorry about that. Few things that you need to understand is the DLT feature, which is the distributed ledger technology. All participants here have an access. The transactions are recorded once. There is an elimination of duplication of efforts, which in a traditional systems that you see. More importantly, records that are maintained are immutable here. No participant can change or tamper a transaction. Another thing that we saw, important feature in our webinar, is the smart contracts, which is a set of rules that are stored on the blockchain and executed automatically. Overall, blockchain is a great technology that offers high level of traceability, transparency, and security compared to the traditional ERP or isolated system. I hope you all enjoy the webinar, and thank you for listening to me. If you have any questions, I would be glad to address that. Thanks.
Thank you, sir, for an informative session. We have a lot of questions from the participants, sir. So I think we can take a few questions from you. So
sure.
Other participants, you can please post your questions to the mail ID from which you will receive the invitation. It will be answered. We will consolidate it and send it to sir. And we hope to answer each and every question that we have got.
Absolutely.
So,
I mean, yeah, depending on Tim, since the time is in essence, like, I
yes,
would
yes,
address
sir.
as much
Yes,
as
sir.
I can, and at the same time, I will, like you said, I will respond back to your email with all the answers as well too.
Sure, sir. Thank you. So can we go ahead with the questions, sir?
Sure, absolutely. Go ahead,
Yeah.
please.
We have a question from Saravana Kumar. Like how other current technologies like IoT, cloud, AI, etc. are integrated with blockchain?
That's a good question. I can answer that. Our company is built on IoT-based blockchain products, basically. The way IoT can be IoT and other technologies, AI, could be integrated in blockchain is that, like, there are two components in blockchain. One is the off-chain and on-chain. You don't want to burden your network with more information in on-chain, right? The off-chain data or even on-chain data connects with IoT in many forms, right? If you have a sensor that communicates the state of the current state of the of the sensor where it is and what type of information that is being transmitted to the system. I can give an example of one thing. If you want to track temperature of a food, let's say, for example, through a sensor, right? If you have a sensor that monitors the temperature and then transmit the data uh, to your cloud, and cloud receives that information as a state in which, like, it's being recorded, and records that information in your off-chain as well as an on-chain of blockchain, the condition and the state, what time it was recorded, and then it circles back with the information saying, like, if in the event of any alerts, you always have a mechanism to alert a system to do the necessary actions, to perform necessary action to retain to the state it was before. Okay, so all things can be interconnected with using various technologies. Definitely, it's pretty hard to say, like, in one, in 1 minute, but it involves, yes, you can. There is a interconnectivity with all these IoT and blockchain that can happen, but at the same time, you don't want to burden your system with more information. And in this scenario, AI can come in picture in terms of you can use a TensorFlow, for example, right? You can create a predictive model in terms of, based on the learnings by the system over the period of time, at what point of time the food is going to go bad. You can alert the system and record that information in blockchain as well too, if you will. Okay, this how the end-to-end connection between these technologies can happen. Again, at the same time, you need to be very cognizant of, like, what can be recorded and how it can be recorded is all up to you, and this without burdening the systems. I hope I answered the question. So.
Yes, sir. So the next question is, what do you think that what are the skill sets that are required for working in blockchain technology for fresh graduates, sir? It's a question from Thiru.
Oh, okay. Yeah, it's a good question also, because most of people ask the same question: how do I learn it? Like, learning on this one is not a rocket science, by the way, right? But you need to understand you need to have understanding of how this can be applied in a real-time situation. What do I need to? What basic skill set I need on this? The basic skill set is, I would say, like, good programming skills, especially in Java. If you know Go language, it'll be helpful. But all the developers that I have dealt with, they are pretty much Java developers. Okay, as long as you know Java, React, or even Angular with Node.js technologies, it's pretty easy to, learn blockchain technology, but every blockchain technology has got a different, it's built on different technologies as well too. Typically the learning curve runs all the way from 2 weeks to a month. There are a lot of tutorials available in the internet, a lot of tutorials available in the YouTube. Also, you can log into many of the blockchain technology sites, even for example, Hyperledger Foundation website. Also, you can log in and learn from there as well too. Like Hyperledger Fabric, to be precise, can be learned within a month if you're a strong programmer.
So the next question is from Bhargavi. Which is better, blockchain developer or decentralized application developer?
Blockchain developer, in my opinion, is better. It's being used. DApps is not being used in many places, but blockchain technology can be applied in any technology as well too. Again, blockchain meaning you need to be very specific of what blockchain technology that you want to be familiar with, and also you want to learn also, right? That's very important too. So I would strongly advise you to focus on one particular technology in blockchain and then master from there, as opposed to touching multiple technologies at once. It's good to know multiple technologies, but I would strongly recommend to have one strong foundation knowledge in one technology, such as Hyperledger Fabric, for instance.
We have received similar questions from a lot of participants, sir. That is whether blockchain is vulnerable to security breaches.
Yeah, like any other application, for example, probably you would have heard that even companies like Facebook, went through this problem, right? They were down for almost 4 hours on one day because there is a breach of security there. Okay, so everyone is vulnerable to that one. So blockchain is no different from that as well too. But vulnerability in terms of it's being buttoned up now with more technologies that are supporting in the blockchain area. I briefly touched on the cryptography, right? So cryptography also provides you a greater security in terms of securing your transactions as well too, because you have a cryptography hash being created on all the transactions, right? And like I said, every technology is vulnerable. Blockchain is no different, and everywhere a phishing happens, right? People getting invited for something, and then you knowingly or unknowingly get trapped to that one, share your information. Same way, if you share your private key and so on, again, people can access your network as well too. So you need to be cognizant of those things. And there are a lot of technologies that are coming in that are tightening up the security aspect.
One last question, sir. This again has been asked by multiple participants. How is the future of digital currency value in India, sir?
Oh, I can answer that question because it's pretty hard. It all depends on how country, adapts to that one. What I know and what I read from, internet and other things, in India does not approve any digital currency at this point, right? They blocked all the digital currency, and so as many countries as well too, for various reasons, for their own reasons also, which I cannot comment on that. But again, it is pretty unknown at this point, and it is not quite visible in terms of where it is going to head to. At this point, what I heard is it is not permitted in India. So I don't know. I have no answer for that one at this point. So,
sir, can we take few more questions, sir?
Absolutely, sure.
Yeah, yes. So then another question is, how does Bitcoin work?
Okay, Bitcoin works like either. It's a it's a digital currency, if you will, right? The difference between Bitcoin versus a normal coin that you get that's been circulated in any government, right? Is that government produces the coin and then circulates that. Bitcoin is like more like a digital currency that could be used for any transaction that allows Bitcoin as an exchange. In other words, let's say, for example, let's assume, so for Bitcoin is also like a share, right? But the value of Bitcoin is based on the demand, right? The more demand is there for a digital currency and the value of the Bitcoin value also increases. Let's say, for example, one Bitcoin is valued at $2,000, let's say, for example, right? And if the value or the demand, if there is a huge demand for the digital currency, especially the Bitcoin, the value also increases for the Bitcoin. It could be like 10,000 US dollars to one Bitcoin in the future. It could be 100,000 US dollars to one Bitcoin. So based on the one Bitcoin, you have to assess what one Bitcoin can buy. If you go to Amazon.com, and if you want to buy, let's say, for example, a TV which is worth $5,000, for example. Now, Bitcoin is worth $2,000, let's say, for example, $2,500, right? So 2 Bitcoins can buy one TV. As long as Amazon supports Bitcoin as a digital currency that can be used as like any other currency, for instance, like a dollar, you can use that as a currency to buy any product. You can use it for any transaction in the real world. Okay, I hope I answer your question. But Bitcoin, just like Bitcoin, there are many cryptocurrencies are already available in the market. Like I said earlier, like Ethereum also has one, and even Amazon is also trying to come up with their own cryptocurrency like Bitcoin, okay, which can be used for within Amazon or even used outside Amazon as well too. Wherever Amazon is partnering with, you can use their cryptocurrency as well. So in other words, Bitcoin is just like any other cryptocurrency that can be used to buy any commodity in the market.
The next question, sir. What is the benefit of using hash functions when it comes to blockchain? Anusia Devi.
Oh, that's a good question. Hash is like more interpreted in terms of like, more like encrypted form. Okay, if you put that way, right? You are seeing like encryption in various places. Like even when you use a WhatsApp, right? You always see it is always encrypted, which means that nobody can interpret the data that's being stored, right? Same way, the hash is being created. How is the hash is being created is through a certain form of technology, which I talked about briefly about cryptography, right? Using cryptography image, hash is being formed on all the transactions which have a reference to, which will have a reference on their timestamp, which will have a reference of what this transaction is all about. Also, which will have reference to a link to the previous block in the chain as well too. That's how the hash is being created. That's the purpose of that. Hello, Dr. Soumya.
Ma'am, are you
Hello.
there?
Yes.
Sir?
Yeah.
Yes.
Ma'am, one last question, sir. Recently, TRAI has introduced DLT, that is Distributed Ledger Technology, for restriction on sending messages via headers, sir. Whether is it developed on blockchain methodology? This is a question from Murugave.
Yeah, yes, I would say yes, but I don't know what type of technology they use. Distributed ledger technology is like, blockchain is a distributed ledger technology. It could be developed in the blockchain, but if you ask me like what type of blockchain technology they use, I don't know. I don't know. This is the first time I'm hearing that, but this is common in distributed ledger technology is used common in blockchain. So I would assume that's the case.
I hope we have covered some of the questions which has been asked repeatedly by the participants, sir. So, is there anything
Yeah,
else you would like to add, sir?
No, that's about it. That's a great question. Like, if I did not answer any question, or if I'm not aware of any other question in the list, I'll be happy to, send my answers in the email to you, Dr. Soumya, and you can share it with the respective participant.
I would now invite our principal ma'am to add a few words about the session.
Thank you, Sujata.
Thank you, ma'am.
So I take this opportunity to thank our speaker, Mr.Souri Rajan. So thank you, sir. We are grateful for the time and support and effort you had taken to share your thoughts and experience on blockchain technology, sir.
Sure. I'm sorry, like I went over a little bit over the time. So my apologies to you.
So this webinar was really enlightening. And this definitely has kindled our interest on blockchain because we are new to this technology. We are not computer science engineers. So, but your lecture has really given us something on blockchain, and we would also would like to work on blockchain.
Anytime we can help you out.
Yes. I'm sure that the participants would have benefited from this. Definitely.
I hope so. I hope so. Thank you.
So thank you, sir. Thank you once again. I thank
you so much for having me as well.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir. Thank you so much, sir.
Sujata, over to you.
Thank you, ma'am. I once again, on behalf of Alpha College of Engineering, we thank you so much, sir, for accepting our invitation and giving us such an enlightening session. We also thank all the participants from various colleges, schools, and industry. You can feel free to post your questions through email from which you received an invite. We will consolidate all those questions and mail it to sir through our principal, ma'am. Thank you, participants. Thank you all.
Thank you all. Thanks, everyone. Thanks for having me.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Sir. Participants, please fill up the feedback forms. You'll receive your certificates only if you submit your feedback forms. The recording of this session will be sent to you through mail. Thank you, participants, once again.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir.